Well, Mike, it sure has been a great year for movies. What happened?
Oh, nothing. I didn't even hear what you said. I just, it went down the wrong pipe.
Oh.
As they say,
Was it a cough or a sneeze?
It just like...
Was it a dry cough? Do you have a fever?
I don't have any symptoms of COVID.
Oh.
But, yeah, it was just the coffee just... They really, appeared to be what they call a spit take.
Yeah, like a reaction. I say something outrageous.
Right.
Yes. It's a staple of comedy.
Right, and it in no way was a spit take because I did not hear what you said. You said, what?
Oh, I was saying it's sarcastically. I was saying it's been a great year for movies.
Oh, sorry, it happened again. It just, I don't know. Something's, wait, hold on.
It's weird. So it's just a coincidence that it keeps happening whenever I sarcastically say that it's been a great year for movies.
You thought it was going to happen again.
Oh my God.
Half in the bag.
I put pizza rolls in my VCR so I could watch them on TV, but it didn't work.
In case you're wondering, I'm not drinking out of the Jabba the Hutt coffee mug that has a chip in it.
No, this is a brand new one that you can break a chip off of.
Right. The old one is right here with the chip, and as you can see, all the leftover coffee in it has horribly molded, as coffee always does. I just wanted to make sure no one drank out of it. What have you been watching?
Oh my God, I've been watching movies. You've been watching movies. You've also been watching some TV shows.
More TV than movies, yeah.
Which makes sense. It fills more time during the empty void that is our existence.
TV, a lot of TV is long movies. Some of these these limited series things.
Yeah.
There's 8 episodes. It's a long movie. Some of them are too long. Some of them should be a movie. Some of them feel just right. Some of them feel like they could go on even further. But that's what we're here to talk about today. What is going on in the world of entertainment? What is out there? There's basically nothing, except for a movie, Fat Man with Mel Gibson, and a movie where Russell Crowe is a road rager.
Oh, Unhinged. I watched Unhinged.
Yes. Russell Crowe should never star in a film called Unhinged. As we all remember, he beat a hotel employee unconscious with a phone.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I never heard about that. How did I miss this exciting news?
Russell Crowe flipped out and he smashed a phone on a hotel employee and he went crazy, and then he was banned from the U.S. for a decade.
What?
Everybody knows about Russell Crowe and the hotel phone incident.
I honestly did not know that.
Oh, great.
I know, speaking of Fat Man, I know a lot about Mel Gibson, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, Mel Gibson, I hear he once put his hand up the ass of a beaver while Jodie Foster watched. Do you remember the last film we saw in the theaters?
It was Rise of Skywalker.
Like a year ago?
Yeah.
December?
That's the last movie I saw in the movie theater.
But the coronavirus, January, February, March.
There wasn't shit out. We didn't go see a movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Weird. Oh my gosh, Rise of Skywalker was the last film I've ever seen in a movie theater in my whole life.
That you will ever see in a movie theater.
Right.
But I think now people, after the last year, are getting more accustomed to watching stuff at home, where it's like you don't need to go to a theater.
Yeah, that model will change.
It's going to change drastically, even when theaters do reopen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something like Wonder Woman, sure, I can see the appeal of seeing that in a big theater. Something like Unhinged, which I watched, was perfect to watch at home, where people could not hear me laughing at the film, and Russell Crowe, who looks like he's made of silly putty these days.
Can you go, please?
But Unhinged was entertaining. It was bad. And I know this was when they after the first wave and they reopened theaters, this Unhinged was one of the movies they put out, and it flopped horribly. And I can see why. It's not a particularly good movie, but it's pretty entertaining. Like the old days of like a B movie, like a classic B movie, where it's got a high concept, but it's really stupid, but that's what kind of makes it entertaining.
Well, the trailer didn't make it look stupid. I mean, I actually like the trailer a lot. I
don't even think I've seen the trailer.
There was this remix of heart-shaped box. Yeah, there's Russell Crowe. A lady honks at him or something, and
It's Road Rage the movie.
Road Rage, yeah.
And I say it's stupid because it requires all the characters to make stupid decisions at every possible turn in order for the movie to happen. Because otherwise, this whole incident would be over in 10 minutes. He's not chasing her the whole movie. He has like her phone and he's tracking her and stuff. But at one point he goes to a diner and sits down with her lawyer and just kills him in this diner and then just walks out. The cops don't show up. So it's stuff like that. And like the kid towards the end of the movie, he's hiding in there's like a hiding spot in this house where it's like you open the closet and there's a little trap door thing and he hides in there. And if he just stayed in there, nothing would happen. And if the woman didn't park her car in front of the house that they were hiding in, he wouldn't know they were there. Like simple things like that. That's the whole movie, but Russell Crowe is like hamming it up. And it's funny because the kid, it's a mom and her son, and the son in it is the same kid from the Child's Play remake. And his mom in this is also super young. And I remember in that Child's Play, it was him and Aubrey Plaza. So that's like, it's always like him and his super young mom. And I was like, they should have just had Aubrey Plaza and just have them be the same characters.
well, I guess I want to talk about. I got Apple TV Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw a movie was coming out. This was a pandemic casualty. And I was like, oh, cool. I'd watch that even in the movie theaters, you know. It would be fun to see that then the coronavirus happened. And it disappeared for a while, and then it ended up on Apple Plus, or Apple, what is it called?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus.
Not to be confused with Apple TV, which is their physical device, their streaming device.
Okay, whatever.
It's a giant mess.
So it's Greyhound with Tom Hanks.
Okay, I thought you were going to say that On the Rocks movie, the Sofia Coppola movie. I know you saw that too, but I was like, why would that be something you would care to see in the theater?
No, it was like, oh, cool, Tom Hanks, World War II. And then it went away, and then I was like, well, whatever. And then it's just straight to Apple Plus, and then nobody saw it on Apple Plus.
Nobody subscribed to Apple TV Plus.
But I enjoyed it. It's basically a World War II porn with Tom Hanks. Gosh.
It's not about a bus?
It's based on an old book from like the 1950s, and it's very like Tom Hanks wrote the script, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it is like shockingly bare bones.
Okay.
And there's like one scene in the beginning where he meets up with Elizabeth Shue, and she's like, "Won't you marry me, Elizabeth Shue?" She's like, "Not now. We just got into World War II." It was like 2 months into the war, the U.S. part of the war. And he's like, okay, I got to go do a thing. I'm a Navy captain. So basically, he was a Navy captain, and him and two other ships. His ship, it wasn't called the Greyhound, that was their code name. There's two other ships, and they're protecting a convoy, a big fleet, going across the Atlantic from German U-boats. And that was their job, is to just kind of like fight the U-boats off so they don't sink as many ships.
Yeah.
Lots of them get sunk. But that's it as far as the plot. It's like okay, one scene in the beginning, and then later on he thinks about her. He's like, she gave me a pair of slippers. I'm going to put my slippers on. And then the whole movie is just technical.
Combat target bearing 092, range Give me a course to intercept if the target maintains this course in 6 knots.
Course to intercept is 096. 203.
Range looks like 2.5 miles.
03 range 2.5 miles.
Like,
Isn't that kind of what Dunkirk was too? I mean, that's just sort of matter of fact and simple and stripped down.
yes, but there's a lot more going on in Dunkirk. There's a lot more storylines. There's characters.
Yeah.
And it is very.
It's
stripped
cutting
down.
back between a few different.
It doesn't ham in the schmaltzy Hollywood like plot lines and this and that.
Well, it sounds like Greyhound barely has that. It just
barely does.
You got to put something in.
Right. It's that. Tom Hanks wrote the whole script himself.
Okay.
So he doesn't. I don't think he understands like the Robert Zemeckis-esque like make your audience. He just wanted to do this like really specific. And it's not even like a true story per se, like this captain was a real person. So this is Saving Private Ryan-esque, where it's just like fictionalized.
Yeah.
But it's like real thing, like a real scenario that happened where
Sure.
boats had to protect, fleets from U-boats. And so it's just like him, like go down. So it's 22.2 degrees this way, and blah blah blah. And they're calling down to the room, and the guy's doing the thing with the calculations of which way the ship should turn. They're launching the depth charges into the water, and I mean, if you love World War II stuff, it looks great, sounds great. It's got explosions, but really, it's like a big meh for anyone who doesn't love World War II porn.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these theater casualties, the movies that were supposed to come out in theaters, and where they end up, who's willing to pay for them.
Right.
Because I know someone was trying to buy the James Bond movie. It might have been Apple. It might have been Apple TV Plus. And they're like, we need like $700 million. You want to buy it from us for that? They're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Because they know you got to make that box office money, and all they're doing is delaying the inevitable. All these movies are going to flop. The good thing to come out of this is hopefully the return of mid-budget movies, because movies are too fucking expensive. When you set up these movies where they have to make $1 billion in order to make a profit, like it's out of hand.
It kind of
Avengers
feels like,
Endgame feels like the end of an era. That's the last blockbuster, and that's
ironically
fine.
titled.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's kind of that, at least a pause.
Yeah.
On that era. But I have HBO Max. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And there's lots of good content on it. HBO shows are the best, in my opinion. I've watched shows on Apple Plus. Oh God, the worst I think is Showtime. But HBO has a lot of good stuff, and they have all the DC rights.
Yeah.
Because I've watched Doom Patrol, just real quick throw out there, Doom Patrol seasons 1 and 2, excellent program.
Oh.
I'd hope to discuss it someday with our friend Rich Evans. He hasn't found the time to watch it.
What's he busy doing?
I have no idea. But I'm sure a number cruncher said, oh my gosh, Wonder Woman comes out, right? I bet you they cancel their month free trial at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like this will be helpful to HBO Max, but probably not helpful to the Wonder Woman movie as far as making its money back.
Well, money's money. It doesn't matter where it comes from. If they projected Wonder Woman to pull in $700 million from theaters, and they project that X amount of people will sign up for that first month and pay $20 or whatever it is, to watch, just to get access to see Wonder Woman right away. And then they say, well, how many people out of those do you think will cancel? Or how many people will just forget about it and keep it on? And then somebody just got out a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and figured it out and said, hey, we could make about the same, maybe more, if we release it now.
Well, that's the advantage of that, is you don't have to give the theaters half of your box office.
That factored into their mathematical equation.
I'm sure it did. I mean, Universal has been the studio that's been trying to get away from theaters. They tried like a decade ago with the movie Tower Heist, if you remember that, with Ben Stiller and Eddie Murphy. That was going to be Universal's first attempt to release something in theaters and VOD at the same time, and the theaters were like, no.
Yeah, I remember that.
And at that point, the theaters held the cards. They were still a major source of revenue, so you had to kind of bow to them, and now they're starting to get to a point where they don't need theaters anymore. It's good when theaters reopen. Theaters are going to need the studios more than the studios need theaters.
Yeah.
Is what I predict is going to happen.
It'll flip.
There's that, but then you risk not making nearly as much as you would if it was in the theaters.
Right,
So
right.
it's all up in the air. It's all kind of exciting with what a mess it is. It's all interesting.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
And then you have Apple TV Plus, which kind of reminds me of an outdated model of, it's kind of like what happened with Quibi too, where it's like, we'll just throw a ton of money at all these big names and all this big talent, and that'll drive people to our service because it's got all these famous people on it, but nobody's watching Apple TV Plus.
Well, how do you know that, Jay? How do you know that?
Do you know anybody that has talked about any of the shows on Apple TV Plus or any of the movies?
Well, that's the thing. It's like when you say talked about, unless we had hard data, and I think the government should force streaming services to share their data.
That is the difference between streaming and theaters.
Like
is,
the
you don't get those
Nielsen
numbers.
ratings, right? Or something like that.
I'm just saying, I look at all the lineup on Apple TV Plus, regardless of what anybody else is saying. I look at it and I just see people burning money and all these big name celebrities and all this and all of it looks so bland. All their like original shows. I watched one episode of Amazing Stories because I remember that from when I was a fetus, the original Amazing Stories. And it was fine. It was a fine episode, but it was just so bland. It's like Apple in general. How everything's so like slick and minimal and clean looking. It doesn't have that grit or that heart to it.
Servant was good. It was weird up until a certain point, and then it became like annoying, and then it didn't end.
You gotta keep people coming back for more seasons.
It kind of ended.
Is it about like a fake dead baby?
Yes, there's a really good.
It feels like a
fake
very
dead-
limited thing for a series to base out. It feels like a movie idea.
It was definitely a thing where it could have been told in a 2-hour movie because
Okay.
it was stretched, and that kid from Harry Potter was in it. It's fucking terrible.
Oh yeah, you're telling me about him. He's trying to do an American accent, right?
He's a terrible, terrible actor.
Why do you have to call him the kid from Harry Potter?
I know.
You gotta call him the kid from Thunderpants. Well, you mentioned Jordan Peele earlier. Speaking of wishing they were Jordan Peele, I saw Antebellum.
Oh,
This
yeah,
was
right.
another theater casualty.
Did he slap his name on that?
He has nothing to do with it, but they want you to think he does.
Didn't it say from the producers?
It says like from the producers of
Okay.
Get Out, something like that. He had nothing to do with it, and it shows.
These sapphires are here to fulfill your every need.
It's not very good. Speaking of Jordan Peele and speaking of M. Night Shyamalan, it feels like mid-career M. Night Shyamalan, which isn't a compliment.
So what is it? A black lady from modern times gets sent back to the antebellum South?
There's no time travel. It does kind of an interesting. It starts out in this is slave era. This character's a slave, and then about halfway through the movie, there's like a narrative shift, and we're in modern times. And for 5 seconds, you're like, oh, what's going on here? This is interesting. And then your brain catches up, and you're thinking about what the twist is going to be. Whereas, like, are you?
Sorry.
What?
It's,
What happened?
I must have had too much coffee.
Oh.
So it's just something weird imagery flashing in my eyes.
Oh.
Okay. So a cheap knockoff of the Jordan Peele project. Is that-
Knockoff of Jordan Peele, wannabe M. Night Shyamalan, quality and hitting you over the head level of the Twilight Zone, the new Twilight Zone. So all the worst of the worst in this movie. And nothing to elevate it above that. That's the thing, is like you look at like the Jordan Peele movies, he clearly likes horror and he's creative and comes up with these weird ideas. This movie is so basic. And so it ends up almost being insulting because there's been so many movies made about slavery, and there's been really good ones, and there's been ones that are like, if you want to show the horrors of slavery, you have to show the horrors of slavery. And this movie felt like it was like walking on eggshells to be about what it was about. It felt so sanitized, which is like, I mean, I get it. You don't want to turn into like torture porn, but you have to, if you want to make a point, you have to show things as they were. And this one is so timid to do that, and then on top of that, it has this dumb twist to it.
Well, what's the connection to modern day? Like, is that in her own way in modern day society, she's still a slave, kind of like because of racism or like.
Do you want to know the twist? Do you care?
Sure, if the audience doesn't mind.
Spoilers, everybody, for Antebellum. The whole movie has been modern times, and they've taken her to this compound where they reenact slavery, reenact being slave owners because racism.
Against her will?
Yes.
But it's all like antiquated. Everyone's wearing old-timey costumes.
Yeah, it's just like The Village, just like the M. Night Shyamalan
so it's
movie.
like a secret society that has slavery still
They
happening.
kidnap people and they treat them like slaves.
When you said it's like The Village, it made sense. What was happening?
Yeah.
But,
It's exactly like The Village.
Okay, I thought maybe it was like a Civil War reenactors, like reenacting slavery.
No. It's like a secret group that does this of modern day like Southern racists.
That is a classic example of it sounded good on paper.
Yeah.
But if not handled correctly.
No. The only saving grace is that lead, Janelle Monáe is her name?
Monáe, yeah. She's a singer.
She's a musician. She's a singer. She's very good with what she's given, but that's about all I got out of Antebellum.
If Antebellum was a swing and a miss, Uncle Frank was maybe a foul ball. I guess that's equivalent to swing and a miss, basically.
A bunt?
No, bunt has its purpose.
Okay.
You bunt to get a guy on first base so that your second baseman could advance to third, and you get to do a whole thing. Maybe just a line drive and thrown out.
The real question is, what the hell is Uncle Frank?
I never knew why Daddy Mac was so mean to Uncle Frank. He was the kind of person I wanted to be. Smart and funny and considerate.
You're gonna be the person you decide to be, or you're gonna be the person everyone else tells you are. You get to choose.
Uncle Frank is a new movie. I think it's on Netflix or Amazon. I think it's Amazon, Amazon original. It stars Paul Bettany, AKA Vision, and it has the little girl from It. And it's like a coming-of-age story coming out. Uncle Frank is a closeted homosexual in 1969. He lives in New York City. He's a professor with more, progressive, advanced, enlightened people, and his family is from the redneck South.
Okay.
So I don't know what it was based on. I don't think it was based on a novel or anything. It's from Alan Ball. I think he wrote it. I think it's just an original screenplay.
Okay.
This is weird. Everything's based on a book. Everything's based on a book now, or from some other source material. I think Alan Ball won an Oscar for American Beauty.
Yeah.
He did the show 6 Feet Under. There's always a component of homosexuality in it, repressed homosexuality, and lots of different characters in his stuff. So I think that's his thing. He's the real Sam Morovich. He's
Sam
the real
Morovich
deal
with talent.
Yeah.
Fuck it another 2 years, Ben. This is ignorance and completely unfair. This country fucking sucks. It just fucking sucks.
But this is Paul Bettany. His father is an asshole, a homophobic asshole. The girl revolves around a funeral.
Revolves around a funeral. Wow, he's really treading new ground with this one, isn't he?
He loves funerals. He loves caskets and dead bodies. And overall, a lot of his stuff has been darker, more dramatic, more risky, and this felt kind of safe.
Okay. Feels like there's always kind of I don't know if whimsical is the right word, but there's something a little unrealistic in a lot of his stuff too, like a surreal element, slightly. I don't know if that's
fantasy-like, dreamlike.
Yeah.
And this is more like straight and narrow, and it's more like, I don't know, spoilers. I don't have time for this. The girl is young. She's about to go off to college, but she's surrounded by rednecks and people that are just kind of stuck in where they are. And he sees potential in her. She's smart. She connects with him. all of her other uncles are all just like, drink beer, watch sports, hate them gays, and the dad is the even worse, and he's very enlightened and smart, and he's like, come to New York, come to this college that I work at, and learn about the world. And she learns that he's gay, and all sorts of stuff happens, but then the father passes away, the homophobic, awful father, and he has to go back for the funeral to the podunk town, and then there's a whole thing where it comes out, and at first everyone says no, and then it becomes like this like warm, like happy ending.
Oh.
It's a high drama, kind of corny. I was a little
sure this isn't a Sam Marovich movie?
No, I'm sure.
Is it better or worse than Ben and Arthur?
It's better than Ben and Arthur.
But which would you rather watch again?
Ben and Arthur.
So there you go.
No, the performances in this are all good. Paul Bettany was really good at American accents. It's one of those, like, despite the heavy subject matter, it's kind of like a light watch. Nobody dies. Nobody gets murdered.
Boring.
Nobody just blows their head off with a shotgun.
Boring.
Expected some more gritty shit from Alan Ball. I don't want to say Lifetime movie. That's too insulting. but just a little too well wrapped up.
Okay.
And not a lot of like, more like canned dramatic situations that seemed below his level of talent.
Well, I watched a documentary called Belushi, which is, of course, a documentary about Dan Aykroyd.
Ha ha ha! Because they were in that movie together, Men at Work.
Yes, exactly.
Where they played garbage men.
That was them. That was definitely them.
Even when things were difficult, he always promised that he would try to do better. I had to trust that he loved me.
No, this is a Showtime. You're talking about all the bad Showtime programming, but this was a Showtime documentary.
I didn't say all Showtime programming was bad.
I don't know. Aside from Twin Peaks, I don't know. I don't think I've watched anything on Showtime until this documentary because I was interested in seeing it because I've had a long time fascination with John Belushi. He's kind of that first generation of like comedy actors because before that you had like Bob Newhart, like Jonathan Winters, like these real straight-laced guys, and then in the 60s into the 70s you had the rise of comedic actors that were more like personal lives were more like rock stars, and he was kind of the first big casualty of that, dying at the age of 33 from drug overdose. Very much a rock star lifestyle. Because isn't that the thing with all rock stars die at the age of 33? Isn't that a reoccurring thing?
27.
27?
27.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? Belushi and Chris Farley both died at 33.
33, yes.
So it's. I read the book Wired in high school, which is written by Bob Woodward about Belushi's life, and so a lot of the stuff in the documentary I'd already known, but it's kind of nice to see it all just contained in a very, if you're not familiar with him, covers just about everything. It's comprised of audio interviews that were apparently done for some sort of like oral history thing that was never made. So you have people like, I don't know how long ago they were recorded, but you have people like Harold Ramis and Carrie Fisher, like people that are now gone, and they're talking about him. And lots of photos and home movie stuff I had never seen before. And
no recreations.
Well, they did do some animated segments first, like they show, because he grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, and he had a band, and so they showed like animated segments of that, and it's pretty well done.
That's the new thing to do in documentaries. Is
animation? Has there been other movies that have done that?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little kind of artistically recreate something as opposed to hiring an actor and all that. Unless you're talking about the stuff on the Reels channel.
Oh, God.
They get some really good lookalikes on the Reels channel. those Death of a Celebrity documentaries.
Oh,
so
man.
good, so good.
I know there was a show called like The Last 48. Do you remember that? It's like The Last 48 Hours. And I know they did one on John Belushi. I don't think I ever saw it.
After filming Neighbours, Belushi's cocaine addiction took hold again. With each hit, he was slowly killing himself. And on his final day, he was far from those who could have saved him.
But they did a movie adaptation of the book Wired. It was only a few years after he died, and everybody in his life was like outraged, and the movie's terrible.
Shit!
So up until this documentary, that's been the only kind of real encapsulation of John Belushi's life and death, and that movie's terrible. So this is it's a good documentary that covers pretty much everything. Has lots of, his wife Judith is involved. She does a lot of interview stuff, so it's good. It's a good balance, because I know the book kind of deals mostly with his substance abuse problems and then his eventual death, and it's a big part of him, but this covers a lot of the early stuff and a lot of his comedy things too, to balance it out. It's really well done.
Well, Jay, you did not watch the Beastie Boys documentary.
I did not.
It's one of the few things on Apple Plus.
Hello, everyone. What we're gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
And you said you don't really care much about the Beastie Boys, or you didn't know a lot about them,
That's
right?
the thing is okay, so it's not so much a documentary as it is a recording of a live performance, or four. You know, they shoot a bunch of them and they use the best bits from all over.
Sure.
But yeah, they're in a live theater, and the live thing is directed by Spike Jonze, of course.
Oh, okay.
And it's almost like a presentation. They're showing clips, they're cutting to stuff, they're narrating it. So I don't know anything about the Beastie Boys. I know the basics of, you know, a couple of their hit songs, the early stuff, the License to Ill, you know, Brass Monkey, Girls, Fight for Your Right to Party, all the old songs. And then I know, like, oh yeah, they had some hits in the 90s, you know. And to me, Beastie Boys kind of always sounded like, you know, yeah, I mean, I like Fruity Pebbles and I'm here to say sweet. You know, it never really hooked me.
You're the first person to associate the Beastie Boys with a 30-year-old Fruity Pebbles commercial rap.
I'm the master rapper and I'm here to say I love Fruity Pebbles in a major way. I'm the A-D-O-O-C-K in the place with the bass, I'm going all the way.
You know that style of rapping.
I don't associate that with the Beastie Boys.
And I'm here to say I love Fruity Pebbles in a major way. Yes, the Fruity Pebbles commercial, because that's what was popular at the time. And so, of course, Adam, one of the Beastie Boys, died. He had cancer. He died probably about 5-6 years ago now. The two remaining Beastie Boys are there. And it's basically just like them on stage, like going back from where they started to where they are now. And so now they're 58-year-old men, and they're all grown up. And in a strange way, and it's just sort of vibes I got from lots of the different things they brought up. It feels more like it feels mostly like a retrospective of their whole career, but in the same way, it feels like kind of an explanation of all the things that they did and said and how they acted and why they did it.
We had a song on our first record that was supposed to be this like stupid and ironic joke, but understandably it wasn't that funny. Now I'm going to tell you the lyrics to that song. Girls.
They had like, it's just like songs like the Girls song. Girls, to do my laundry.
Yeah.
And they were very pointed in saying, oh, that was a parody of Dude Bros that would sing a song like that, you know, because you listen to it today, it came out today, you're like, nope, canceled immediately.
Or context is completely removed from everything.
And so they're like, and then for a big part of their tour, they had like a giant inflatable penis on their stage, and all this like crazy shit, and they'd throw beer in the audience, and so they're like, well, okay, when the stage manager asked, what do you want on stage? So we just came up with the craziest shit just to see if it would happen. And it's like, okay, sure you did.
So we didn't know what was a joke and what wasn't a joke at that time. I mean, shit got really blurry.
Ironically, the most interesting Beastie Boy is the one that died. The other two, I don't know were that interesting, but it was basically them talking a lot about him. Okay. He was kind of like the guy who was just like, I'm going to research this. I know all about this. And where does he have time to learn all this stuff? He's really smart. He's the guy who got in the Tibetan stuff. I don't know if you remember any of this from...
Vaguely.
They did a free Tibet stuff kind of started with that guy.
Yeah.
The Free Tibet concert with all the big rock bands, and that happened in like the late 90s, I think. He was the one that started that, and he went and met the Dalai Lama, and it was sort of like the John Lennon of the group, more culturally aware of the world around him as opposed to just being a musician.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was it was like kind of like a story of how they evolved from being bratty kids that liked punk rock and rap and were really immature, because some of like the old videos of them are like cringy.
Oh, sure.
But and then they're grown ups, and they went through this process of growing up.
Yeah.
There's this whole interesting segment where they discuss how they stopped for like 2 years and just learned how to play instruments and actually learn music, because they really didn't know that much, and they're like, okay, and they bought a studio, and they lived in this house in Los Angeles and learned how to play guitars and drums and bass and like kind of experiment with different sounds, and so there's an evolution.
That's what's interesting about them, because especially like starting that young, you compare it to a lot of the like the hair metal bands of the 80s, where you go to a county fair today and they're still doing the same shtick.
Oh yeah.
They never really evolve. That's all they kind of know. So yeah, that's always interesting to see. Like an artist or a group like that it's constantly changing what they're doing.
Right. And lots of funny stuff. I mean, it's really good. It's really entertaining. But in a small way, I kind of felt like, hey, maybe we should explain ourselves a little, because.
Let's get this all out there before people start digging up our old shit.
Cancel.
Chapter 5, Dicks in a Box.
You mentioned like the hair metal bands and like going back to like cringy stuff, and I forget which one of the Beastie Boys it was being interviewed, and the interviewer said, well, now you talk about women's rights and feminism and progressiveness and all this, but then when you go back and look at your old stuff, and it's kind of like smutty and dirty and filthy and childish and all that, and he's like, don't you think that's kind of hypocritical? Don't you think you're a hypocrite? And he's like, I'd rather be a hypocrite than the same person forever.
There you go.
And so it's like that's the point.
So, Mike, I have breaking news.
Breaking news.
This will not be breaking news by the time the video comes out, because we have to edit it. But this story came out while we were filming this video.
Yeah, we just took a break, and I don't know what he's going to tell me.
Warner Brothers has announced that their entire slate of movies for 2021 will be put on HBO Max concurrently with theaters. The entire thing. So that's shit like. Was it the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, Mortal Kombat, fucking Dune, and Matrix 4?
What?
This is crazy.
They've given up on theaters?
Well, I mean, they say it's gonna be concurrently with theaters. It'll be on HBO Max for like a month, and then it'll be removed. So you can see it in theaters or on HBO Max.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So that's a pretty fucking big deal. We were talking earlier about Wonder Woman, and so it's funny that happened while we were filming this discussion of everything being on streaming. That's like bigger than just Wonder Woman going to HBO Max. That's like a game-changing move. That's like the death rattle of theaters, even more so than it's been.
Yeah. We don't know what a post-COVID world looks like, though, Jay.
It may be everyone just wants to go to theaters all the time because of
being cooped up for a year.
Yeah.
And it could be like...
Which is why it's smart of them to say they'll be in theaters too.
Yes, and it's something they could always change.
That's true, yeah.
So it could be a situation where it's like, I don't know, a competing movie company and a Paramount or whatever. They have new, what's coming out soon? Let's say Black Widow movie. They decide to release it in theaters after everybody's been vaccinated in June, right?
Sure.
And it just does gangbusters. It brings in $1 billion, $2 billion, and then they go, maybe that Dune movie we should put on the theaters.
Dune, of all of those, Dune is like the one that, I mean, that's Denis Villeneuve. He's visionary, meant to be seen on a huge screen. So that being on HBO Max is a pretty big deal.
Well, I wonder how that will affect like filmmakers wanting to work with certain studios.
That's true, yeah.
Especially like your Christopher Nolan's, because Warner Brothers is who he's associated with, like
Yeah.
the Tenet and the Batman movies and what. Like if Christopher Nolan has like a big project he wants to do in the future, you know, and he knows it's going to be on people's home TVs instead of on IMAX.
Yeah.
He might shy away from that. Everything's changing.
It'll be funny. I was looking at the list of movies they're releasing, and like when theaters finally do reopen, like you said, maybe June or something, mid-year, when things are completely open again. And one of the movies that's slated to come out is the hybrid live-action animated Tom and Jerry movie. What if that's the first one to come out in theaters and it makes like $2 billion because everybody just wants to go see a movie?
Yeah.
And that's the movie that saves theaters. The movie that killed theaters was Tenet, and the movie that revives them is Tom and Jerry.
That'd be hilarious.
That'd be pretty fucking funny.